Are you burned out, stressed, sick and tired of being sick and tired? Maryam Sharifzadeh is my guest on the Dying to Ask podcast. She's a corporate wellness expert who created office yoga 10 years ago. She got people bendy in nearly 500 companies, from Oracle to Amazon. But post-COVID, the workplace is, well, complicated. And now more companies than ever are offering wellness programs trying to increase engagement and productivity. We're talking about the true cost of burnout, the link between mental health and the bottom line, the number one reason corporate wellness programs fail, and a 2-minute break you can do at work that will give you more energy and improve your mood. Download Dying to Ask on Apple or Spotify, or watch the episode right here. Maryam, thank you so much for joining us on the Dying to Ask podcast.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I need to go a little behind the scenes for people because I had about a good 20 minutes of Zoom drama this morning. I mean, it was bad and I still haven't figured it out. And ultimately, you ended up helping me by recording our conversation right now on your end. And I was so embarrassed that this was happening. And you were so kind to just say, let it go. It's okay. Like, I think if there's a pitch for corporate wellness, it was that experience I just had with Zoom.
I'm glad that I can make it a little easier for you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about corporate wellness and the importance of it. And some of it is just kind of managing stress when stressful situations come up for. Yeah. Is the way we approach it changing now over the last couple of years?
Well, stress itself hasn't changed. You know, we'll always have stress in our lives. That's been with us forever. But the way that we've approached wellness at work has evolved quite a bit. I would definitely say that corporate wellness now is no longer a luxury. It's a priority. And thank God business leaders are starting to really acknowledge the importance of it too. And they're starting to implement it more within their companies. So that's something that we've seen change a lot.
I work for a big company and I started to notice it before the pandemic. Certainly during the pandemic, there was a lot of outreach trying to figure out how do we help people. Now it's big. Like, there are so many benefits that I find that are offered that a lot of the people that I work with, I don't think even realize are even offered. I've got to think that there is some science or some data that's backing up why so many big companies are really going all in on trying to help employees kind of stay whole in all the ways.
Yeah, absolutely. The clients that we work with, I mean, I have a number of examples just from personal experience, but the clients that we work with really see the healthcare costs reduce. They see the turnover go down. And then we can get really specific. One of the things that we do as zen-as is wellness strategy, and that's what makes us unique. So one of the clients I work with is an insurance company, and they looked at their medical costs at the end of the year, and they saw that a lot of employees were using sleep aids. So a lot of the costs that they were paying were for sleep aids. Yeah, they were having trouble sleeping. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all relate.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the following year, we implemented more sleep health. We did workshops, we did classes around it. We talked about it a little bit more. And then that following year, their costs for sleep aids went down. So they saved money on their premiums, right? Their healthcare costs. But also during the pandemic, I was still working with the same client. No one left. And that was the time of the Great Resignation, where people were leaving their jobs. And, you know, this was a big insurance company. Not a single person left the company. And if anything, they actually grew a little bit towards the end of the pandemic. So they saw their healthcare costs go down. They saw their turnover rates also go down. So they saved money by just having a good wellness strategy and program in place.
How did you get into this? Because you were, you know, it was 2014 that you founded a training kind of program called Office Yoga, which back then, I mean, like, wellness was a little bit more woo-woo back then. I think that some people thought it was good. We weren't talking about self-care like we do now. How did you like get into that as early as you did? What did you see? Or what happened?
Well, Deirdre, I've been an athlete and an entrepreneur my whole life. So I was swimming and playing water polo. That led me to go to grad school for sports management. And I started working at Cal and Stanford at the same time. Don't tell them.
I mean, there's so much that you can make of that.
Yeah. But I was working for both in different departments, but I was working for both in their collegiate sports departments. And I realized it was a glorified office job, you know, so I went back to the drawing board, and eventually I was working with one client teaching yoga classes for them once a week. And I was in this transition period of what do I want to do? This is what I love. I love going into the office. I love teaching them yoga. And so I just walked up and down the building and went knocking on doors and asked if anyone else wanted to have yoga classes on site. And it was widely popular. So I think I was at the right place at the right time. And people really embraced it. So it was easy for me to start, and it was very organic. I never meant to be a business person. I've always been an athlete and a yogi at heart.
So when you started offering that, what happened in that environment? Like, what did they notice happening business-wise, say at Berkeley, that led you to go, wait a minute, there's something else here, and for them to go, wow, that made a big difference.
Yeah. Yes. So before I started office yoga, I was running a wellness program for faculty and staff on campus at UC Berkeley. And in that 2 to 3 year period, as I was running the program, I was helping coordinate it. I really saw a huge shift in the employees on campus. I think their stress rates went down by like 47%. And again, the turnover was significantly less. Like people were so much happier at their jobs. They kind of came in a little cranky. It was a 16-week program. But by the end of it, they were totally different people. And so that's what really inspired me to take it beyond the UC Berkeley walls. And I had a great coach and mentor there that helped me. Her name's Jo Baker. Shout out to you if you're listening. She's phenomenal, and she really taught me so much. And so I was able to take what I learned from the program at UC Berkeley into office yoga.
I mean, 47% seems like kind of a staggering number, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's significant. And a lot of that too is the camaraderie. So we created a cohort, and so everyone knew each other. They all had coaches, they all worked together. I think a lot of that, the relationship that was built was very impactful.
What do you think it is that happens when you are consciously moving with someone, whether it's in yoga or like an
Yeah.
office walk program or something like what happens when you're in movement with people that creates that connection or help?
I would love for you to answer that question too. But what I could say from my
I got an
experience,
answer.
I know you're an athlete, so I want to know a little bit about your response to this. But what I can say is when you're at work, you're sharing information intellectually, right? You're sharing concepts, you're sharing ideas, you're working together in a very intellectual capacity. But when you move together and you breathe together, you just connect on a much deeper level. It's a different way of connecting with another human. So I know that just from experience being an athlete and swimming in pods and work and doing yoga with groups, that the people that I move with and I exercise with, I feel like I know them so much better. And I feel like I'll be friends or I'll have that relationship for the rest of my life. I want to know a little bit about your experience because I know you're an athlete
Okay.
too.
Yeah, we are very similar, although your swimming is we'll talk about that in a little bit. So my personal theory is that I have always believed that movement is medicine, and especially since the pandemic, I believe that if you can't breathe through something, you're not going to get through it. So you got to figure out like what is it that gives you that release that you can kind of refocus yourself.
Yeah.
But I think if you're in movement with somebody, sometimes you're not looking them in the eye. And when
Mm.
you're not looking someone in the eye, it's a lot easier to have a conversation sometimes. And when you're
Oh,
moving, you're also letting go of whatever stress or judgment you might have. You're getting
yeah.
that fresh air, you're getting that dopamine hit, you're getting the vitamin D from being outside, hopefully. I think it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to have tough conversations with people if you're taking a walk around the block sometimes than if you're
Yeah.
sitting across the desk. So I think that's part of it. I also have teenagers, so a lot of this is experience in the front seat of my car, to be quite
Yes.
honest. So I think that that's kind of part of it, but I think it's also a shared experience. I notice when I go and I work out with colleagues, changes the connection completely. One of the people I work with on our morning show, we frequently go to a noon workout class together. We're very close because we've sweat
Yeah.
together. And I'm not saying that
Yeah.
everybody's got to go to a CrossFit class or something, but there's something about doing an activity like that and maybe suffering a little bit together. And even I would imagine yoga sometimes for people. I mean,
Yeah.
we think of it being relaxing, but sometimes if you're not really very proficient at it, it can be uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
sometimes even a little embarrassing as you learn how to find your own balance. But it's
Yeah.
also gratifying and you get to share the joy of that too.
Yeah. What's interesting is there's
Sorry,
a
that was like a total TED talk. You didn't need all that. You know all this. You
well, what you're
created
saying,
office yoga. You know.
but what you're saying is so true, and it's on many different levels. Because there was a a research study that came out on dogs. And when two dogs had tension when they met, they would they would walk the dogs side by side on leash together. And that would help diffuse the tension. So
Hmm.
when the dogs actually met and they didn't get along, a good walk side by side on leash helped diffuse that tension, which I thought was really interesting. That's
It's
basically what we're
fascinating.
doing. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
noticed that even like it's funny, not that we're here to talk about animals, but you'll notice that with like dogs that are reactive to each other, if they can
Yeah.
come up and meet each other,
Yeah.
they typically then the next time they see each other, like you said, they're fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that common ground of doing something, just kind of uniting for a singular purpose of doing it.
Yeah.
Years ago, they used to release this, I'm sure they still do, the Forbes like top places to work in the country. And one of them was a place called VSP, which is Vision Services, which is based in Sacramento. And I
Yeah.
used to have to go out every year and interview the CEO, Roger Valine. And he was kind of famous because he had these two Southwest Airlines chairs that were in his office. And he would
Yeah.
carry on like meetings in these chairs with his employees. But like
Yeah.
everybody loved VSP because it had a putting green and they had office yoga and they had all the like fun things that Silicon Valley was just starting to implement. And he was doing
Yeah.
it intentionally. And I remember he said to me, I don't offer yoga at the office because I want everybody to be able to touch their toes. I offer it because it helps people form connections.
Yeah.
And this was many
Absolutely.
years ago. It wasn't really because he wanted them to be able to be super, super flexible. It was that he wanted them at the end of the day to also enjoy their jobs, be good at their jobs,
Yeah.
and keep that company going. And those two things don't have to be exclusive. They can really work together. In fact, we know that they do.
Yeah, we know that they do. And to me, that's the heart of it. It's the relationship and the connections that you make with your coworkers. That really is the lasting piece. But the nice thing that I appreciate about yoga or any physical activity is that it does keep you physically healthy. A lot of people are sitting at the desk for 8+ hours a day. They're staring at their computer screens. I mean, I can't think of a better way to help prevent chronic pain and stress from the physical body than doing a 20-minute desk yoga practice. It could be very simple. So there's many, many benefits to having a wellness program.
Have you found that this has changed post-pandemic? I mean, I feel like our workforce and the way we work and how we work and what companies want has changed and then changed again and then changed again over the last 6 years. Is this where we are now?
Yes, it has changed a lot during the pandemic. It's no longer a luxury for companies to have a wellness program. It's a priority. So it's something that employees are looking for, especially the younger generation that's entering the workforce. They're looking for an environment that they want to be in, that they feel cared for and cared about. So that's one of the big changes. There's also, companies are now hybrid more than they ever have been before. And that's part of the strategy that we help implement with our clients. Before, when we were office yoga, we were mostly on site. And like many other people, we had to pivot during the pandemic. So we went virtual and now we work with our clients in a very hybrid format. So we could be on site or we could be remote or we're both. And I find that a lot of companies feel like they're running two businesses because they have on-site employees, they have remote employees. So they're trying to figure out how to accommodate both groups because they need different things. So I think that's something unique that we offer through ZAS is we're able to accommodate the hybrid workforce.
And so Office Yoga was a program that started back in 2014. Explain what ZAS is, because I mean, it really has grown to be a little bit,
Yeah.
probably because of the pandemic, I'm assuming, to be something a little bit different.
Yeah, ZAS was born out of office yoga. So when I started, we were just teaching yoga and meditation programs on site for our clients. And I still think, yoga is the best bang for your buck. It gets the physical body, it helps the mental, space. It's really minimal equipment wise. You don't need much. So I think it's the best bang for your buck. But as I was, running the business for about 10 years, I realized our clients needed a little bit more than that. And especially during the pandemic, I used the opportunity to pivot and upbrand to ZAS. So we now offer cooking demos, chair massage, health talks. We just got a women's health doctor in, so she's doing women's health talks. So we do a lot more than just yoga and meditation.
So you worked with some really big companies. I mean, I was looking at the list, and there isn't any big company, especially from like Silicon Valley, that you're not going to recognize on this list.
Yeah,
What is it like when you go into a new one and somebody, I'm guessing sometimes people are told, we need to have this,
yeah.
and you go in to implement it. What's that conversation often like?
Well, there's many conversations, right? There's the initial conversation, getting to know the other client, but I tend to do a lot of my research before I meet them. So I want to know what industry they're in. I want to know how many employees they have, whether they're on site or remote or both. So I do a fair bit of research because all those things are going to impact how we work our strategy. But then I want to know, what is it that they're looking for? What inspired them to reach out and bring in a wellness program? And that tends to give me enough information to at least start building out a strategy that we can then implement. Because I think what's important and what a lot of companies miss is that they'll assume that everyone needs like yoga classes, or they'll assume that everybody wants a cooking class. And I will say, everybody wants chair massage. No one.
I was going to say, I'm good with that one.
No one ever pushes back on that. There are some,
Right.
crowd favorites. But knowing that what your employees want, and then also the duration of classes and when people can attend. I think the biggest miss is executive leaders really championing the program. So without having executive support and the CEO suite or the leadership suite really encouraging the programs, attending the classes, talking about it at all hands meetings, like giving shout outs on Slack or Teams, that's to me the easiest fix that employers can do to help promote the programs.
So you need it from top down.
Top down, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I have clients that do it top down, and they have by far the best programs and the most impactful programs.
It's really interesting. When people tell you kind of what they need, what would you say are the common themes that they're saying they need help with? And are people a little bit more honest about saying that they need help?
That's a good question. I don't think they're going to try to hide it with us. We're there to help, and we're pretty honest and open. So they don't tend to hide it. I think a lot of people have burnout and fatigue, especially
Yeah.
coming out of the pandemic, and now going back into the workforce where employers are wanting people back on site. Things are changing, and they're changing very quickly. I think a lot of it's burnout. So that's a big focus that we have too.
So what would you say would be, say, three of the top recommendations for a business where burnout is becoming an issue?
Yeah. I would say if you are going to bring something in, bring it in consistently. I think another trap that employers are falling into, which is I don't know if it's a trend or they think they need to do this. They bring in a lot of random classes or a lot of random events that don't really tie together. So I would say bring something in consistently. If you're going to bring in a meditation class, do it 20 minutes twice a week. If you're going to bring in a yoga class, do it consistently over a period of time. Because if you bring in one yoga class for 60 minutes to help prevent burnout, I'm sorry, one yoga class isn't going to do it. But if
Are you
you
fixed
have,
yet?
yeah.
Are you done yet? Are you better?
Did you do
Awesome.
it?
Go
Yeah.
back to work. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I definitely think consistency is the key to preventing burnout.
Okay. So if we're looking at the three recommendations, number one, be incredibly consistent. What would be a second one?
I would again say champion it from the top down. I can't emphasize that enough. If leaders are involved, if they're showing up to the classes, I can't say that speaks volumes. One of my other clients, it was another insurance company. I taught a class on site. It was a yoga class.
Boy, insurance is stressful, huh?
It can be. And the CEO came to class, and I had them standing in tree pose balancing, and I made some silly joke like, "Focus, y'all, the boss is here." And he fumbles out of the tree pose, and he's like, "I could barely hold the pose myself." And everyone just starts laughing. And just because he's a CEO doesn't mean he's immune to stress or tight hamstrings. Like, he's demonstrating to his employees that wellness is important to him and it's important for the culture. And he's grateful that, we have those classes and that everybody's there. And so again, they're one of the clients that has some of the best, I think some of the best benefits and effects from the programming that we have because it's championed from the top down.
That's great. So number one, be consistent. Number two, champion from the top down. What would be a third reason for
A
employers
third
to do
reason,
this to
I'm
avoid
forgetting the
burnout?
question that we started
We were talking
with.
about like recommendations, like, to embrace something like this because of burnout, especially since that seems to
Yeah.
be such a big issue.
I mean, honestly, I think if you champion from the top down and you're consistent, I think those two things are enough. Honestly,
Okay.
those are the two big misses that I see a lot of right now. So I would keep it simple and just say, Do those two things. Yeah.
For people who have a smaller business,
Yeah.
and maybe don't have a budget to do something quite so big, are there any simple things that an employer can do that you would believe can really change the feeling, the well-being in an office or a business?
Yeah, that's a good question. We work with small clients too. We have like a mini custom program that we offer. Um, And that again has a consistent practice on a weekly basis. So I would say it would be back to consistency. You can
Mhm.
do things on your own. For clients, when we do just wellness strategy, but we don't actually implement services, I have them create a wellness channel, either in their Slack or their Teams or whatever they use to communicate with employees. And I have the administrator, or we offer them ideas to share. But if you find something that, like a great article to read, or if you find a practice that you really like, just share it. Have some communication and some dialogue around well-being practices.
Yeah,
So I
just
think that would
talking
be,
about it can be good.
yeah, yeah, just having a way to share it and talk about it internally so that employees know that it's important for the company.
Okay, let's flip the hat. Let's go to the employee's point of view now, because
Yeah,
there are a lot of employers that are doing the best they can, but if
yeah,
employees don't meet them halfway, it
hmm,
doesn't matter, right?
yeah.
Like it's not going to happen. So, what's the responsibility, do you think, of the employee to
Mhm.
also look out for their own wellness?
So I think that one, I don't ever really want to put it on the employees because they already have enough demand and
Let me
stress.
rephrase. What
Yeah.
would be your recommendations for an employee who does feel stressed, burnt out by all the things,
Yeah.
in terms of trying to get a little bit more control and to improve your own well-being in the
Mhm.
workplace and at home and all those other things?
I think there's two things that the employee can do. One would be to talk about it with their manager and just say, hey, I'm really burnt out. I need a break. I would love some services, whether it's wellness services or health talks, just maybe be a little bit more vocal about what they want. And the other thing I would say is get your colleagues involved. Because
Mm,
usually when you have a bestie at work or you have someone that you go on walks with or you go to yoga class with, it makes a big difference. So, and I will say there was a client that I had worked with, and I remember I would walk around the office and I would say, "Hey, it's yoga time. Let's go to the yoga class." And one woman looked at me and she kind of rolled her eyes like yoga's not going to fix my problems. And I later got to know her and she felt like her boss was breathing down her neck that if she took 20 minutes to do a yoga class that she would get punished. And this is why
mm.
I keep saying it needs to come from the top down. Leadership needs to be involved, management needs to be involved, and they need to give permission and really let employers know that it's okay. Because I think if you had the option, why wouldn't you take a 20-minute break and
Right.
move your body?
Well, and not only that it's okay, but that it actually is good business.
Yeah,
It is a good business strategy
yeah,
to make sure people are at their best.
absolutely. I think Johnson and Johnson implemented a wellness program early on, and they saved $250 million in healthcare costs in the first 3 years of having their wellness program. So it's good business in many ways.
That's amazing. Okay. I want to do a little dive right now into your own athletic background. You are a
Okay.
phenomenal open water swimmer. Will you just talk a little bit about where that came from? Because, I mean, you really do practice what you preach in
Yeah,
terms of putting yourself out there.
I do. Thank you. And I know that you're a phenomenal athlete too. So I want to ask you a couple questions in return.
Sure.
But I started open water swimming. I really got into marathon swimming when my childhood sister passed away in a plane
Oh,
crash. And so I used open water swimming as a way to process my grief. It
wow.
was a dramatic,
May I
incident.
ask how old you were when that happened? I'm so sorry.
It was in 2018 when she passed away, and she was 29. So
Wow.
I was in my early 30s. She was young, and it was all over the news. It was just, it hurt, it hurt really hard. And I knew that I needed an outlet to process my grief. Otherwise, I was going to go down a bad path. So I was swimming a little bit in the open water at the time, and she loved Lake Tahoe. Like that was her favorite place on earth. And so I just made a commitment. I was like, I'm going to swim across Lake Tahoe. And, I raised money for No Kid Hungry, which was a charity that she was really involved with. And that was a way for me to process my grief, but also honor her, honor her spirit and keep her alive with our family. So that's what got everything started with my open water swimming career.
Well, but it went beyond that. So
It
will you please brag just a little bit? I don't think it's really your way, but would you mind just explaining like some of the stuff that you've done and what you've learned because you've gone through that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So after Tahoe, I knew I wasn't done, and I had made a friend at South End, which is the club that I swim with. Someone had swam around San Francisco. He was the only guy, and he had done it maybe 7 years prior. And I said, "Why hasn't anyone else done this?" And he's like, "I don't know." And so I was like, "Well, it'd be really fun to try it." So so we tried again 7 years later, and so I was the second person to ever swim around San Francisco, first woman to do it.
Amazing.
But when you're a pioneer, it's something you realize that the path is not really paved. So when they first dropped me in the water, I jumped right into an eddy, which is basically a giant whirlpool. So I swam in place for the first 2 hours, and I had no idea, thank God, because it was dark out and I couldn't see anything. But it was 54 degrees, and I was really cold. And I just kept finding these little landmarks. I was like, okay, I could see Golden Gate Bridge. When I get to Golden Gate Bridge, I'm going to get out. I was just going to call it because I was so tired. And I got to Golden Gate Bridge. I started to feel a little better, but I could see the Bay Bridge. I was like, when I get to Bay Bridge, I'm going to
Wow.
get out. Got to Bay Bridge, and I had about 90 minutes left of the swim. And at least that's what they told me. And so I was like, I might as well just finish it. So I just had little benchmarks that got me there. And it was a tough swim.
How many hours did that take and what was the distance ultimately?
It took too many hours. Uh, in total, it was 9 hours and 11
Wow.
minutes, but who's counting? And it was 22 miles.
Now, most people are going to hear this and they're going to be like, not a chance. However, we all have our big open water swim or thing that
Yeah,
we can do. What
yeah.
do you find is a value in voluntarily suffering and being uncomfortable? What has translated to your own stress management from doing hard things?
Confidence.
Mm,
When I put myself in these situations, these really difficult situations, and they're strategic, right? I've evaluated the risk. If I'm going to do a swim around San Francisco or the English Channel or just swimming in the bay, I've calculated out my risk, so I know I'm going to be safe. I'm going to hopefully survive. Knock on wood, made it
yeah.
this far. But whenever I get through something like that, I feel so much more confident in my ability to manage day-to-day things on land and at work. And in open water swimming in particular, I'll say the most frustrating thing for me that also translates into work as an entrepreneur is being stuck in place. So when I'm
Mm.
swimming against the current and I could see that I'm not making any progress, my heart beats so fast and I just get so frustrated. And all I can do is keep swimming. And so for me, when I feel stuck at work, I just have to remember those moments of like, I might feel stuck in place, but the tides are always going to turn. Something will shift and I just have to keep swimming. I have to keep trying.
And isn't that kind of how I think a lot of us feel, maybe especially even a couple of years here post pandemic? Life is still challenging. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of stressors. There's still a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that pops up. And when you sit back and you go, oh, there's a little COVID trigger right there, like there's still a lot of that.
Yeah, and there will always be stressors. We're never going to be able to bypass them. We have to work with them. So I think really understanding how you deal with conflict or difficult times, whether it's through your athleticism or whether it's through work, is one of the best things that you can give yourself. I mean, what do you do? I know that you're also a marathon
Mhm.
runner, and so what are your tricks?
So, I always thought I just enjoyed it. And it wasn't really until the pandemic that I realized why I like this endurance stuff is that it's actually how I manage stress. I floated through a good 20 years of thinking I was very relaxed and type B. Like I honestly, you're laughing and you don't even know me, but you know that that's not me at
You're
all.
not type B, no.
I know, but Miriam, I thought that I was.
Mm,
I genuinely thought like, I'm good. Like I'm Teflon, like stuff comes and I'm like, bam, bam, bam. And it wasn't until the pandemic where there was really kind of no hiding from stuff that I was like, oh no, I'm actually quite a stressed person. And extreme endurance kind of stuff that I really enjoy that challenge of,
Mhm.
is my way of managing stress. Like I do have a stressful job. I do see a lot of really icky stuff, and the subject matter is not always the best, but there's a lot of really good stuff too that goes along with it. But I think that that's how I've always managed stress and anxiety. So
Mhm.
I think I see the purpose of it and the value in it in a different kind of way. I'm also very competitive. So, if you
Mhm.
did the 5K, well, you got to do the 10K, you got to do the marathon. Okay, what's beyond that? Okay, let's try that. And it's enjoyable and it's social and it's outside and I don't know. I think it's like it's the constantly trying to figure out like what are your limits. And when you push through a new limit, it does give you, to go back to your word, confidence to
Mhm.
know that when something else hard comes up, okay, well, I have done A, B, C, and D before. I know I can do this. I got this. What did I do in that time? I stopped for a few minutes and I did some breathing,
Mhm.
slowed myself down. Can I regulate?
Yeah.
I know what it's like to be tired or hungry or cold or, fill in the blank. Like, how did I push through that? And I've also had the experience and truly like the honor of covering a lot of extreme athletes. So when
Yeah.
you were around, I mean, I've covered 12 Olympics, 11 Olympics, and I've covered a lot of living in Northern California endurance athletes around this area. When you are around that many people of that caliber, you very foolishly start to think that you can do what they do. You can't. Like if you and I like spent some time together, I'd be trying to swim under the bridge in about 2 weeks, right? I would think that it was a good idea. And maybe
You
it is. I don't
can.
know. Maybe it
You
is.
can. You just need to train for it.
But, there is a little bit of that. So I do think that, like, for me too, I am not an entrepreneurial person, but I'm a very intrapreneurial person within the business where I work, which
Yeah.
I think is valuable. You probably don't, as a boss once told me, I don't need a lot of you. I just need like one of you. Little goes a long way, but that's the beauty of, any kind of corporate setting is you want to have a variety of people.
Absolutely.
But you also want to, I think what you're talking about is like have that spirit where we all kind of look out for each other,
Yeah.
and there's looking out for the business and there's looking out for the people. And if you can get those two to marry together, you can
Yes.
do some really amazing things.
Yeah. There's so much innovation that can come of a good team that works together. And a good team that works together, whether it's movement or athletic endeavors, they can get so much done. And it's been fun to watch my clients, to bring it back to the corporate wellness space. It's been fun to see my clients that move together be innovative in their ways. Twitter was one of my anchor clients, and my job, we had like 7,000 employees at their height in 19 different countries. And my job was to make sure that each employee was taken care of, but also connect everybody.
Mm.
And so through that connection and camaraderie, through the Twitter employees at the time, they created Twitter Open Spaces, which was like an audio chat platform at the time. And
Remember
so,
that.
yeah, it was really cool to see the innovation that came in the business through the wellness work that we were doing.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Will you leave us with just a couple of things that we can all do, office yoga wise? There are things you can do without even getting out of your chair that
Yeah.
can instantly improve how you feel. Would you lead us through just a couple of these? And for those of you who are listening on audio, we'll be as descriptive as we can.
Yeah.
But you can also go check out the YouTube version of this to watch it as well. But what is something we can do just like sitting in our chair to feel better?
One thing we could do, this one's good for tension headaches. So if you just bring your elbows down to the desk in front of you or to your knees and bring your hands together and place your thumbs right between your eyebrows and just relax the weight of your head into your thumbs. There's a pressure point here between your eyebrows that's very sedating for the nervous system. So just holding this for about 5 breaths or so can actually go a really long way. It helps relieve tension headaches, or, if you've been staring at your computer all day or your phone all day, this just really helps kind of reset your physical body and mind. Yeah, perfect, Deirdre. You're doing great.
Gosh, it's really, really good.
Yeah. You can even
It's
run
amazing how
yourself.
heavy your head is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 10 pounds.
That's a really great one. How
Yeah.
about for people who, a lot of us were sitting in front of a computer all the time. We get that kind of like tech neck feel when we're
Yeah.
looking over our phone. What's
Yeah.
something to stretch that neck area out to kind of increase your energy?
There's two things that we could do. My favorite is going to be the cactus arms, and anyone that's trained with me will make fun of me because I do this all the
Okay,
time.
so for
They
people
know
who are
it's my favorite.
listening, we've got our elbows out, we've got like a 90-degree angle, and then some
Yeah.
jazz hands.
Yeah, and some jazz hands.
And
Yes.
some jazz
You want
hands.
to squeeze your shoulder blades together, and if for a moment, maybe just look beyond the screen and look at
Okay.
something about 20 feet away. Again, to give your eyes a little bit of break.
This is
Just
like
squeeze
the
your
Gen
shoulder
Z
blades.
Instagram pose where you're looking off at like sights unknown. Okay.
Yeah, looking off to the distance.
Yeah. Never done that in the wild on purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one feels really good. I mean, Marion, that took like what, a minute to do both of those,
Yeah.
and you feel this little burst of energy.
Yeah, especially when you open up through the chest. We're so forward in our work. We're typing in front of us, we're looking at things in front of us, we're driving with, everything's in front. Our eyes are at the front of our body. So really opening up through the front of the chest and engaging the back body, the shoulder blades and the upper back, it's really beneficial. It's very energizing.
Yeah. Wellness isn't woo-woo, it's necessary. I mean, it
It's
really
necessary.
is. It's
Yeah,
necessary.
yeah.
And for all of us.
You can take the woo out of wellness.
Take the woo out of wellness. What are some good ways for people to learn more about ZAS and about what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you for asking. We have everything on our website, which is zas.com, ZAAS.com. And we actually have a burnout retreat cooking up. So if that's something that anyone's interested in, you could
Interesting.
definitely find it. Just get on our newsletter. We'll be announcing it there first. But I'm very excited about the burnout retreat. So that could be found at zas.com. Again, it's ZAAS.com. All of our programs and our classes and things are on there. So it's easy to find us, hopefully easy to navigate, and you can find all your information there.
Is there a next big swim?
Oh, there is.
Can you say?
Yeah, I could say. I'm going to do High Sierra swims. So it's a couple lakes up in the Sierras. And so we're going to do about 3 or 4 in over 3 days. So
Oh,
that'll
that
be a
sounds
really fun one.
amazing.
Yes, it's a swim, not swam, if that's a real saying. Yes, so that will be the next journey this summer.
Well, best of luck. And thank you so much, not only for joining, but for also running the Zoom for me. You're
No
really good
problem.
at your job, and you relaxed me in a moment of embarrassment and frustration. And I sure appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate you, Deirdre. Thank you for having me.
I'm Deirdre Fitzpatrick, morning news anchor and host of Dying to Ask. My guest wrote the book, launched the product, won the race, or cracked the ultimate life hack to live bigger by living smarter.
This opened up a door, and things will never be the same again.
One thing I've learned is that you have to think it before you can do it. Join me for the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the people who turn big dreams into real life success.
Isn't that an awesome thing to be able to say about any career?
Subscribe to Dying to Ask wherever you listen to podcasts.